live!
Yay!
Hello! Hello! This is the live show for Soundless by Richelle Mead, which was our group book for the Winter Biannual Bibliothon 2016. So we are here to discuss that. So let's go through and introduce ourselves and give the general star rating of what we thought of the book.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Brittany from Brittany's Book Find, and I rated Soundless a 4 out of 5 stars. And yeah, I went into it pretty with no expectations at all, and so I think that was a really good thing. I really enjoyed the pace of the book. I couldn't stop putting it down. And generally, overall I enjoyed it. There's a few little flaws I found with it, which I'll mention later, but overall I really enjoyed the pace and the characters and the world. I loved it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm so bad at this. I gave the book a 3 stars, pretty solid 3 stars, because even though I was
Who's next? Red?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Who's talking?
No.
What's going on? What is going on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Can you hear everyone?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Oh. Oh.
What is happening?
I don't know.
Okay, Red, can you continue?
I
What
rated
is going on?
By the way, I didn't even say anything. I'm Red from Little Red Reader, but I rated it 3 stars. Pretty on point with the
If you can hear me, someone else can go.
Oh my god.
No. Hold on.
Hold on.
Someone message her and tell her that Red's trying to talk.
Okay, Red, why don't you keep going?
Okay. So, 3 stars. Oh my god, no, I'm going to shut my phone off because now you guys are being noisy with the messenger. Alright, so 3 stars, and I feel like I really liked the mystery behind the village. I found that really, really interesting, but there were definitely things that I did not care for about the book, which kept it from being even a 4-star book for me. So, those are my general thoughts without saying too much.
I'm Emma from Emma Books, and I rated Soundless a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I love Richelle Mead, so I was really excited, but I've heard some not so great things about Soundless, so I was really nervous going into it. But I thought it was just generally entertaining. I thought it went to a lot of different places because the way that the synopsis is expressed is that to me it sounded like the whole story was going to be them going to the bottom, and at the end we'd find out what was at the bottom of the mountain they live on. But I just wasn't expecting it to have all of the things that actually happened in the book. It was definitely pleasantly surprising, and while most of my issues lied within the ending of the book, I generally really enjoyed it. So Kelly, it's your turn.
Hey guys, I'm Kelly from Kelly's Book Spill, and I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book, which I really enjoyed Vampire Academy too, so it's very classic Richelle Mead. There's a couple of small flaws that I'll talk about later, but for the most part, I just thought it was really good. The culture was really interesting. I agree with Emma that I thought that it was going to be like going down the mountain the whole time, so it was interesting to get the other aspects and finding out more than just what's at the bottom of the mountain and stuff, so I really enjoyed it.
Kelly, I swear we have the same exact thoughts on every single book we read.
Selena.
Okay, hey fellow book lovers, I'm Selena. I'm from XXX Snap 13, and I rated this book a 3.5 stars out of 5 stars. Originally going into this book, reading the synopsis and everything, I thought it was going to be more fantasy, but it felt like it was more of a dystopian until the end. That's when things started changing a bit. But overall, I had a fun time reading this book. It was very different from anything else that I've ever read, and I know that I've never read any of Richelle Mead's other books, so I wonder if how different they really are. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it.
And then Sierra.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name's Sierra. I am from Sierra Reads, and I gave this book a 2.5. I gave it the benefit of the doubt and gave it a 3 on Goodreads. But I was not that
happy with it as everyone else was. I just have my issues. I feel like I was sitting here reading it and just nothing was happening, and I was just bored.
I feel like you and I kind of had a very similar experience reading the book.
Yeah.
It
wasn't bad.
Yeah, it just was. It just was.
It just existed.
I'm Cassie from Miss Sassy Cassie, and I originally gave the book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. When I rated it on Goodreads, I gave it a 4 and then talked about it in the review. But then the more that I've started thinking about it and we've discussed it a little bit, the more I realized that I really did have more issues than I thought I did. So I probably would say more of a 3.5 to 4 stars now. It still was good though, because it was an entertaining read. I read it really fast. It was a quick, fast-paced book, and I really enjoyed that. And I was again entertained while I was reading it. But the more I think about it, the more issues I had. So that's why the stars go down as that time happens. So we do have our Q&A app open, so you can be asking us questions there, because I see we have some viewers at this point. As of right now, our comments are disabled on the actual YouTube channel, and I unfortunately don't know how to fix that, because we made it so that it has comments available, but it's just not working. So if you want to tweet at us, you can do that, or you can use the Q&A app, and we'll be looking at both of those.
Also,
and then,
the Winter Bibib hashtag, I have that open too.
Yes, Winter Bibib can be used too. And then we're going to go through, do we want to do one more round of general non-spoilery thoughts before we get into spoilers?
Do we want to talk about the writing? Because I feel like we can avoid spoilers without talking, just the writing in general if we want to go down the line.
Okay. Brittany.
Hi, I'm back. It works now. I really enjoyed the writing. I am a huge fan of Vampire Academy by Richelle Mead. I just find her, I see Emma smiling, I just find her writing very addicting and very, I don't know, I found it fast-paced. I never at one point found that it would dragged and it was dull. The only time I found, actually, no, I didn't really find it slow at all at any point, but I found it flowed really well. I really liked the way that the characters were talking. I never got confused with who was talking or anything like that. And I don't know, I just find her writing very addicting, easy, and a quick read, and I really like that. So that's kind of my general idea of the writing for me.
Yeah. I think for me, see, you guys know that I'm very, very picky about writing anyway. It's just the way I am. So, but how I feel about the writing is I don't want to notice the writing. If I stop and realize that the writing is kind of getting to me, I don't even want to think about the writing. I don't want it to even be enough to come to my attention. I just want to be so involved in the story. And the fact that I did have to stop a few times to mentally comment to myself on the writing kind of showed me that, what is that noise?
Yeah.
Red, is it your audio? Because I notice it when you're talking.
I haven't heard it before now.
I don't know, I noticed it before.
Sounds like it's coming. It stopped.
It's weird.
Let's keep going. Hopefully it stays away.
Okay. So basically, oh my god, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
You noticed the writing and you had to stop.
I noticed the writing, and the fact that I even stopped to think about it instead of just staying fully submerged in the story shows that I felt like the writing could have been a little bit better. I like that it's fast-paced. I enjoy that she constantly keeps the story moving, because I hate when I hit those slow patches. It drives me nuts. But ultimately, it wasn't bad, but I felt like it was a little bit stiff or something. I don't know. I don't think the writing was totally for me, and I feel like it was a little bit mediocre in my opinion.
Well, as someone who's I read Vampire Academy and I also read Bloodlines this week, and there is definitely a difference in the two, in Soundless and at least what I've read from her otherwise. Personally, I hate books read in the present. Like, for some reason, like, if I look at a book and it says I smile instead of I smiled, like, it's a massive pet peeve for me, and it does make me step back and, like, have to, like, think and focus better on the writing. So I don't think it's, like, the best writing Richelle Mead has ever put out, but I didn't have a big problem with it. I tend to, like, focus more on a plot in a book rather than, like, focusing on the writing. So, like, I'm not the biggest, like, writing critic out there, but I just generally enjoyed it, and I thought it was really fast-paced, and, like, when I'm reading Richelle Mead's books, like, I just want to keep going, and, like, for the most part, the writing didn't really bother me. I found, like, there were so many other things in the book that I focused more on than the writing, so generally I didn't think it was terrible writing, but it definitely wasn't the best that I've read from her.
I basically agree with that. I didn't really notice the writing so much because I was more focused on the plot line and stuff. I mean, it felt like kind of a normal Richelle Mead book to me. It's very easy to read, easy to get through. I didn't think there were very many slow points. I mean, it didn't really bother me that much. I didn't notice it that much. So it's not the best writing out there, but it was fine.
Okay, here's the thing. When I read, I usually go out into the backyard at like 3 in the morning and I read out loud to myself. So if a book is written how I speak, it's usually easier for me to read it out loud. So when it flows like that, it's completely different. So it's not so much how much it was written, it's how good I was able to speak it. So I can't really judge it on stuff like that because I did read this one out loud a bit. But I did notice that it was a little bit itty-bitty slow to pick up in the start, but then once the ball gets rolling, it's just a lot better, and it flows a lot nicer.
I feel like that's very well said.
Yeah. Sierra?
I'm not a huge writing critic either, just because, like, I am awful at writing, so I don't feel like I have the right to judge. But, I mean, for me, anyways, there were points that I did notice the writing, and I'm the same as Red. I don't like to pay attention to it. As long as, like, the storyline is going great, then I'm fine. But there were points that I had to, like, stop because I felt like she was just really repetitive with how she, like, explained how things were happening or explaining, like, characters and, like, their traits and stuff. I just felt like it was so repetitive that it made me notice it more than I would have normally, and that's pretty much my only issue with it, is just repetitiveness.
Mm-hmm. And Cassie, what do you think?
The thing that struck me the most is the fact that there were no quotation marks, and I really, really loved it because she obviously did some research with her sign language aspects, because in sign language you don't speak sign language, you use sign language, and she said that in the book. Like, they said something along the lines of, we use sign language, and they never used the word spoke except for when she realized that people were speaking to her, like, later when she goes down the mountain. And so I really just loved that aspect, that there were no quotation marks, that it was all in italics and stuff, because I found that really important to the plot, since it's all about deaf community and stuff. So I really liked that. And as far as, like, the present tense, that didn't bother me at all. I actually didn't even realize that that was the case until Emma mentioned it this morning, and I had to go and open it again and realize that that had happened. But yeah, I don't really pay attention to writing much either like that, unless, I mean, like, it takes it being really preposterous for me to be like, this writing is weird or something, but usually it's
so weird.
But usually it doesn't even faze me. So yeah, I really, really liked that.
I was really interested when I was reading it. This was like, oh wait, like, Cassie knows sign language, and, like, she's, like, very involved in the deaf community. Like, I was really interested to see, like, how you perceived that. And halfway through the book, I was just like, wait, there's, like, no, like, legitimate, like, speaking dialogue in it. Like, it hit me out of nowhere. I guess I just didn't think of it beforehand that this whole book was, like, going to be told without, like, an actual word being uttered.
Yeah,
that was really
cool. Something that I really, really liked too was exactly what you said, because it always drives me crazy whenever people say speak sign language. I'm like, you don't speak sign, you don't speak sign, you just sign, and it drives me crazy. But it was really interesting because even though I know that they would probably use their own, like, individually developed sign language, because, like, I still try to imagine the conversations in ASL and how that would, like, go down between the characters, even just in ASL.
I did that as well. Okay, so we have a couple questions regarding the Chinese folklore aspect of this, and I feel like we could definitely answer this in the non-spoilery section. So we have Megan Precourt asked, do you guys know about what Chinese folklore Soundless was inspired by? And then we also have, it moved. And then Megan also asked, did you guys like getting some Eastern culture elements in YA? I haven't seen much of any of Eastern culture in YA. It's typically Western. Did you guys like that change of culture? Do you know any other books that follow Eastern culture?
Brittany, do you want to start?
Yeah, I actually don't know what Chinese folklore Soundless is from. I saw the question, so I was Googling it while I was looking at the question, and I still can't find it. So that's interesting to me, so I can't answer that one. The Eastern culture thing, I think that's super interesting. I never really thought about it until Megan just asked, actually. And thinking about it, I didn't notice it really that much, so I have nothing really to say about it. But I agree it's nice to see something from another culture rather than just always Western. I do really like that. And off the top of my head, I can't really think of another book on the top of my head right now, but if I think one, I'll yell it out. Brad, go ahead.
So I have no idea what, oh my god, what was the question? What folklore it was inspired by. I don't know, because I know another question was asking whether or not, I thought there should have been more Chinese folklore. There might have been more Chinese folklore in that story that I wouldn't have been able to recognize because I'm just not familiar with Chinese folklore enough to be able to recognize or recognize when it's not there. But as far as other books that I've read that have kind of dealt with that, I did read the Joy Luck Club, and that was like half of it took place in China, so I read that one. But other than that, I haven't really read a whole lot else of Eastern culture.
Oh, I thought of one. I did read one, actually. Memoirs of a Geisha, I read.
Oh.
And that book was it's an adult book. I read it years and years ago, but it was really, really good. Like, if you've seen the movie, the book's even better. So that's my suggestion. Sorry.
I don't know what type of folklore it was inspired by either. I do know that the name of that's kind of spoilery. I guess we'll go back to that later. What was I trying to say? I don't know what it was inspired by. I'm kind of disappointed concerning fandom and books question, which is, do you think there should have been more involved in the book? Because when people were talking about it on BookTube, like, it was just constantly like, there's so much Chinese culture put into it, and I feel like it set that expectation that there was going to be a lot more Eastern culture thrown into the book than there was. There were scenes that, like, I did notice it, like, if, you know, they were playing that game with the scorpion at one point. I don't really think that's a spoiler. They were playing a game with a scorpion, and, like, I don't know if that's actually an Eastern custom or, like, a game they play. It is? Is that what you're saying, Red?
Oh, I was just saying, like, you seem like you're kind of like me, where you're able to recognize whether or not it is part of Eastern culture or not, you know? Because
I can see why it would be, though. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it actually was, like, a game that was played in China or anything. I think there should have been more just because of the way that everyone was saying it. And I don't read much Eastern culture. The only book I've ever read that takes place in Asia other than Soundless is Cinder. But that's like a dystopian China. I mean, this is kind of like dystopian China, too. But I think there definitely needs to be more of, like, an Eastern kind of culture in young adult. I feel like so much of what we read, or at least what I see on BookTube, is Western. But the way that I can compare the culture expressed in this book would probably be The Wrath and the Dawn, which is Persian, so it's not really Eastern. But, like, if someone's looking to get out of, like, the Western culture elements of young adult, that's definitely a really good one that introduces a lot of different culture and customs, and there's a ton of Persian folklore in that, too. So I thought that I'd throw that in there.
Kelly?
I also do not know what Chinese folklore Soundless is on. I actually tried to look it up too, and I cannot find. Like, they have interviews of her talking about the book, but she never says, "Well, this is where I got this story from." She just says it's from Chinese folklore, so she might not even know where she got it from. But I think, like, when they said, "Do you think it should have been?" Let's see, did we ask in there. Should there have been more of it? I think there should have been more of it. There's a few issues I had because it was one small standalone book, and so you are not seeing so much of the different aspects of the book as you could if it was longer or had another book with it. Like, I mean, I was worried going into it because I knew that it was more of a Chinese culture, and I'm not used to reading that, and so I'm really funny about getting, like, historical fiction. I'm really funny about getting into that because I'm not used to reading it. Well, it's the same with this, and so, but as I started reading it, I didn't really notice it as much, which probably is not a good thing. There should be more Chinese culture that I noticed the huge difference of the book, but for the most part, I mean, it was still good to me, but I think there could have been more aspects to it.
Okay.
Selena?
Oh, I did try to look up the scorpion thing, and I found nothing. Nothing.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, obviously, let's just come to the conclusion that none of us know what folklore is.
Yeah, me neither.
Someone said on Twitter, actually, a niece just said, a few days ago I was thinking Soundless is based off of folklore about a powerful dragon that is deaf.
I was gonna mention that. Damn it.
Yeah.
Okay, well that changes things. It makes me really curious to look it up though, because actually this book came into my life at a very interesting point. I've actually recently just gotten into like manga and anime and watching all that sort of stuff. So I'm kind of just threw myself into this type of culture in this world, and I did see a review of, I forgot who reviewed the book, and she said that if you had taken out the names and all of that, there's not really that much Asian culture in the book. I mean, there is, but it's not as much as, like, I just watched Samurai Champloo, which is an amazing show, by the way, if you want to watch it. And I kind of agreed a little bit, because at the end of the day, there's just so much more that she could have put in there, just with descriptions. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it could have been a little bit more itty bitty bit.
I really agree. Is it my turn now? Can I go now?
You
Okay.
can go.
So, I really agree with that, because I was thinking, as I was reading it, I don't want to really spoil anything, but, like, when they get to a place, I was thinking the same thing. If their names hadn't been what their names were, names I cannot pronounce, I was really, like, comparing it to Lord of the Rings. I don't know why, but, like, the town wasn't, like, described at all as how, like, it could have been to make it seem more along those lines of Eastern culture. I just feel like it could have been any town anywhere, because there wasn't enough describing it.
I was going to say, I thought that it could totally take place anywhere, and, like, if there was more folklore present, like, I would have been saying, like, it had to take place in China. One thing I want to touch on before we move on is when Clockwork Kitten had mentioned that it was a deaf dragon. What I was going to say before that I thought was kind of spoilery, but it's not really spoilery, is that the word Pixius, or Pixius, whatever that word is, my cousin used to be obsessed with dragons, specifically like Chinese dragons, so I recognized the word, so I knew that there was some kind of tie to it, like concerning if we knew if there was folklore or not. But I like, otherwise, like, I didn't really think that there was anything specifically Chinese folklore about it.
Yeah. Coming from the anthropologist major in the group, this is not anywhere near Chinese, like, culture. This is an American and maybe a deaf culture, because they talk about eye contact a lot, and eye contact is one of the things that Americans and deaf people are, like, really, you need to have eye contact or it's really rude. If you go to the store and you go to the Starbucks and the girl that is taking your order doesn't look at you, you think it's really rude, and then you're upset. And if you're deaf, that happens too, because if you're not looking at them, then you're not listening, because it's a visual thing. Mm-hmm. So granted, there is that aspect with the fact that they're all deaf and speaking sign language, so that's a thing. But, like, Chinese culture is really rude if you give eye contact. Like, you should not look anyone in the eye, because especially, like, the elder and like, mentor relationship, like any sort of, like, father-child, or where there's obvious like, power distance, you shouldn't be giving eye contact. So, like, there's a specific line in the book where she mentions the fact that she was annoyed that the guy, the the love interest didn't look at her, and I was like, that's not Chinese. That's really American. So, like, and just the general, like, how the, like, group was set up, like, there's not, I don't know, it just didn't feel very Chinese at all. It felt very American to me, and I think that that is probably because an American wrote it. I mean, it's really hard to step out of your own culture and write from a totally different perspective. So,
I just totally see what you're saying.
A little bit. Just because, like, I could see, because I definitely see what you're saying, but I could see, you know, this village that's been isolated, that's had to learn to communicate with death, abandoning the idea of not, you know, having eye contact as being rude. I could see them developing more of an eye contact culture just because they are deaf. That being said, there was an entire town at the base of the mountain that could hear, and there was nothing touched upon how it was rude to make eye contact, and I feel like if there was any opportunity to include how eye contact is rude in Eastern culture, it was in the hearing town, and they didn't do that.
yeah, that's more of where it, like, really bothered me, because they talk about how, like, the owner of, this isn't really spoiler, but the owner comes home and he's, like, looking at people, and the employees are, like, watching him. Like, no, that's not what would happen in a Chinese town. Like, that's just not how it would happen, especially in that specific relationship that we get to know more, where it's definitely not a happy relationship. So, yeah, I did not think that there was much Chinese culture in that. I think we're starting to get into that point where we need to tell people that if they haven't read Soundless, they need to go, because we keep almost spoiling things, and then
We're really doing
not. So if you haven't read it yet, go read it and come back and watch it later. And if you have read it, then obviously you're here to stay. So that's your warning. That's all you get.
Okay, so since we warned you, I'm going to talk about why it reminded me of, like, Lord of the Rings. Like, because they say they walk up to this huge walled-off town. And have you guys, like, watched the Lord of the Rings movies at all recently? Like, there's so many towns in those movies or those books that are, like, walled up. So that's, like, all I could picture. I was like, it's all white people everywhere is what I'm picturing. And there was no, like, definition to any Chinese culture that I noticed. That, like, I just...
They didn't even really do a great job, in my opinion, of, like, describing how the characters look. Like, obvious Asian names like Li Wei and Fei and, I don't know, all of the ones, Elder Chen, etc. But, like, they weren't described as specifically Asian. Like, you would think you would take this moment to finally give you some absolute, this is an Asian character, because we don't get any. Like, name one Asian character in any other YA series that's, like, that's specifically described Asian without being, like, racist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Cho Chang, she got described.
Who?
Cho Chang, Harry Potter.
Like, yeah.
I don't think did they really describe face looks that much?
No.
Well, I mean, Faye's
They mention her black hair, her black fine hair, and
They talk about her clothes more than her.
But anybody can have black hair.
Yeah.
How did they describe Park in Eleanor and Park? I don't remember.
Oh, he might be one. I think he might be.
Yeah, they do describe him. They do describe him.
I'm pretty sure he's half Asian, right? He talks about being upset that his eyes aren't.
His mom,
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Isn't his mom Korean or something?
Yeah.
But, and that's the thing. Like, I appreciate that she at least went out of her way to not, like, you know, kind of Americanize the names. But I feel like it was almost like, I don't know. I feel like it wasn't quite going far enough. I feel like, oh my God, I cannot stand that. Like a hamster wheel.
Okay. Are we?
Megan Precourt did mention Kenji from Shatter Me is described as Asian.
Oh.
Yes, I just read that. That I
Is
remember.
that Gem?
Oh yeah, Gem.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Gem.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's more when you think about it, which is good. I like hearing this. We have a question on Twitter from, I hope I don't say your name wrong, but it's Celia, I think, Techie Polyglot. I hope I'm saying everything right. And she asks, what did you think about the romance?
Do you want to go
I
down the
am so
line?
excited for this question.
Yeah, let's go down the line. Brittany, you start.
Red.
It was, yeah, I I didn't really focus. Like, I know there was, like, a lot of it, but I just found it a little bit, like, typical, I guess you could say. Like, kind of your typical love triangle in a way, because she's brothel to be with someone else, but someone else wants to love her, so obviously she's going to go with want the person that she's not brothel to. And then it just was super convenient, and then when he finally said he loved her, I just found like it was just all of a sudden like that was really like thrown in there like out of nowhere, and I remember skim reading all of the love kissing parts. So that for me was not my focus at all of that book. Like, I skimmed pretty much all those mushy parts, and then I like went to the action again. So for me, I just found it very typical, and I knew what was going to happen like right away. It's pretty obvious. So yeah.
Red.
So I have quite a few thoughts on this.
Mm-hmm.
None of which are good, unfortunately. First, I want to say that talking about Leeway's arms constantly is not romantic development, okay? That is not romantic development. Oh my god, like, I was ready to throw that book because anytime they were supposed to be having a moment that was supposed to build on their relationship, it all revolved around stupid Leeway's arms, and I couldn't get it. It was like, oh my god, Leeway's arms are so close to me, and I can feel the tension. And
Oh my god, his arm is touching me. Oh my god.
Oh my god, I was getting so frustrated with that. But not only that, it's like even the history that they supposedly had prior to the book starting, and then you find out that they didn't actually do anything like prior to that. They acted like they had this whole huge romantic relationship, and they probably would have gotten married had she not become an artist. But then you find out that nothing ever actually, oh my god, the hamster wheel, nothing ever actually happened between them, ever. And yet there's this huge history somehow, and that kind of drove me crazy. And ultimately, I just kind of didn't care about their relationship. When they reach that point where they say, I love you, or they confess their feelings, or they even kiss, I like to feel like I'm rooting for them, like, yes, finally, and I'm excited for them. And I didn't feel that at all. I kind of just wanted it to be over with.
I didn't have as many problems with the romance. I felt like when I was reading this book, I was just focused on so many other things that, like, their romance wasn't bothering me because I was so interested in finding out, like, you know, like, what was the reason that all of the things stopped, and, like, why are they deaf, and why are they losing their sight? Like, I was just more interested in finding out those things than paying attention to their relationship. But I can totally see where everyone's coming from. I just wasn't attached to these characters in any way, and that's a big thing for me when I'm seeing two characters falling in love. Like, I need to be attached to the characters to be attached to their romance. But I thought it was interesting that, like, regardless of how much history they have, generally the love interest is introduced in the book, and it's like the first time they're meeting. I feel like in most of the books that I read, there are definitely books where they, you know, the people have been dating beforehand, or they knew each other before the book actually started. But I feel like in most cases of the YA that I do read, the whole point is that the girl meets the boy and then they fall in love. But I just thought it was interesting to see them, like, talking about their past, because that's not something I see a lot of in YA. Kelly?
Well, for me, y'all know I love my contemporary love romance stories and all that good stuff. But it's interesting because in this story, I feel like the romance was not as important as everything else was. So
I was going to say that too.
Yeah, I didn't really focus on the romance, and I'm one of those people who focus on romance. I love that part of the books, and I just didn't in this. That's not what was important to me. And, like, even whenever they first saw each other in the book, I guess when they had that run-in, I didn't even know that that was the case, that there was supposed to be a romantic history there. It just didn't feel like that to me. And I think a lot of this book, it didn't feel like they had this romantic connection until they started really going down the mountain and getting into the town. But even then, you know, it's more like I care for you because you're important to me, but not a romantic connection. But at the end, I was still really happy that they were able to be together and there was no restriction and all of that stuff, but it just wasn't that important to me.
I totally agree with you, Kelly.
Okay, I forgot what I was going to say. Hell. Oh yeah. So I think just the fact that this book was so short, it's a little bit harder to get attached to characters in a relationship. Character development is really hard to do in a book that's so short. And so I think that definitely put a damper on the whole situation. But like Kelly said, at the end of the day, this book wasn't really centered around these two people, around this relationship. It was more centered around what is happening in the community and everything, and figuring out what's going on. So it didn't really bug me that I wasn't as invested in the characters in the relationship. I think that the idea of having them having some sort of prior relationship did kind of save it a little bit for me. Because if it was like I just met him 2 seconds ago, we went down a hill and now we're in love, it would have killed it. But the fact that they at least knew each other a little bit before is definitely much better than the typical we meet, fall in love, and have babies.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
I agree with that.
I definitely agree with that. And like Emma said, I was not invested in these characters at all whatsoever. I could kind of care less about them, and I was just wanted to know what was at the bottom of the damn mountain. So coming from a person who really doesn't enjoy contemporaries all that much, just because like the lovey-dovey stuff to me is just boring. I don't find it interesting. If I'm gonna sit down and read a book, I want to be invested in like this completely new world that's just like action-packed and fun. So the lovey-dovey stuff in this book kind of like peeked out at me just because I'm that type of person that like doesn't really enjoy it all that much. So I felt like there were parts where it was really forced, like she was really trying to force the relationship. I just don't think there were parts where Faye was like looking at him at a certain way or like thinking about him when she could have been like thinking or like moving on with the plot, and like I just felt like it felt a little forced. But I didn't notice it that much, but just like the points that I did.
I actually felt like this relationship that was in this book was a little bit of a breath of fresh air as far as fantasy romances go, because, well, like everyone has mentioned, the fact that they knew each other already, I really, really loved that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, thank the Lord we did not get an insta-love, because even though, like, to me, it wasn't insta-love because she's been crushing on this dude since how long? Like, since she was 7 or something, and he obviously has been crushing on her since that one day at the house, whatever, when she climbed it. That whole thing, like, it felt very like, I've known this guy since I was 6 years old, and we are friends, but then we haven't been able to tell each other that we like each other, but it's just like this growing, like, big crush that is really way more normal than, hey, I met this dude and now I'm in love with him. Like, what? It just felt a lot more real to me, and actually the thing that felt more forced, in my opinion, as far as relationships in this book go, was the sisters' relationships.
Oh, that too. I didn't like that either.
I actually didn't like that, and I'm all about like having the best friends relationship or the sisters relationship or whatever be more important than the love interest, but to me that felt forced. Like she was trying to make it not a normal YA novel with the love interest being the focus, so I'm going to put the sister in it, but like we didn't really get anything that had to do with the two of them being close, other than when Faye saves her because she's going blind. But, like, yeah, that was it. And then all of a sudden she has to go back to the town, like, climb the scary thing. She has to risk her life. She has to go back, and she has to save her sister. And I'm just like,
I agree so much, because at that point where she was like, no, I have to go back for her, I was like, why? Like, I mean,
yeah, exactly.
If it was my sister, I would have been like, yeah, I'm going back for her. But, like, at that point in the story, there had been no character development between them. I was like, why? Like, why don't you just go away with him and live your happy life? I felt the
same exact way, because I know, like, if it was my sister and then, like, Matt at the end of the mountain, then, yeah, I would have made him go back with me, and I would have gone and saved Lauren. But it didn't feel like it mattered that much to her. Like, it didn't. And so I didn't like that very much. And that stuck out way more to me than the romance did.
Mm-hmm. There's one question that I really want to answer in the Q&A app, and it's from Fandom and Books, and it says, do you think that Faye's character was kind of a generic heroine figure? Because I have a lot to say on that, but let's go down the line.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, for me, I definitely think that it was very, very generic. However, I liked that that it's kind of generic. I don't know. I get intrigued by that. I'm always really drawn to people that are very persistent and resilient, and because I'm that type of person. So I know I relate to people like that, even though it's kind of convenient and just kind of thrown in there makes it a really easy way to write your book, I guess. But the one thing I did wanted to say was the relationship, what you were just talking about with the sister, everything you just said, the fact that she wanted to be heroic, to go up to save her sister, I didn't feel as much because I didn't really like that relationship. So like if she was going up to save, maybe more so focus on the town than the sister, and like, I don't know, that's the part, I love the genericness of it. I love that she's gung-ho and she just wanted to just like rappel down a mountain, and like realistically, would we all do that? Probably not. So, but I really liked that. I liked that part of her character. That's what drew me into liking her as a character. But the thing that wrecked it for me was why she was doing it. She was doing it to save her sister that I just felt was forced and didn't mesh, and I just didn't like that. So for me, yeah, it was generic. I did like it, but I didn't like the reason why, if that makes sense. But,
Red?
Yeah.
I don't know why this question feels so difficult to answer. I mean, yeah, I do think that for the most part she was pretty generic. Okay, I'm just still collecting my thoughts. Like I was trying to collect them all through Brittany talking, and I'm still
You can go back to if you want.
together. But I guess, yeah, she was generic. I mean, I think part of that being so typical and generic comes from her not being developed overall for her to stand out from that. She just, none of the characters were all that developed. I didn't really care about any of the characters, including her. I mean, I still wanted her. This has definitely got to be my tablet. Like, I'm convinced of it now. I will track down headphones afterwards. But I think that some of being so generic, I think, comes from not being developed enough, and the fact that I didn't really care about her, although I was rooting for her still. I just didn't care about her all that much. But I do, one thing that I do give it credit that I feel like in a lot of YA I don't see as much is when the novel starts out and she's like this, oh my god, why? So she starts out as this artist. She likes fitting in. She likes being part of the artist. She likes being, she likes that being conforming to what society admires. You know, she likes people's approval. She likes her elders' approval. And I feel like in a lot of YA, female protagonists tend to be the exact opposite. The reason they're different is because they like to go against the status quo. They like to go against what people tell them to. In this case, I feel like she was a little bit more realistic because she wanted to be part of this bigger part of her village, if that makes sense.
I think that was probably the only thing that felt very Chinese culture to me. Like fitting in and being collectivist.
I agree.
Like, because the other opposite of what we normally see, you know, the Katniss Everdeen of YA novels, that's a very, very American thing. So for her to be the opposite of that, that's probably the only thing that stands out to me.
When she feels kind of forced out of it, that she changes her tune about it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Emma.
The reason I want to answer this question is because I distinctly remember this one line, and I was so ready to talk about it in like a review. And it was at the time when she had just gotten her hearing back. And first of all, I think it's so funny that she's like annoyed by all the sound. She's like, it's so distracting. Like I thought it was like very humorous. But she's saying like how she wants to observe the town more because she thinks it's so ridiculous. Like it's impossible that she is the only one who got her hearing back. And I'm like, oh my god, like Richelle Mead just threw out that chosen one trope out of the window. Like, the main character is aware of the fact that this is ridiculous and this shouldn't be happening. Like, I thought it was so fantastic. And then we get to the end, and she's the only one that was bonded to the Pixies. And I'm like, you totally just threw all of that out the window. Like, I thought it had the potential for her to be aware of, like, the fact that, like, you know, like, she shouldn't be the only one with a hearing. Like, I thought at the end, like, maybe there was going to be somebody else who got their hearing back or something. Like, I totally thought that this whole chosen one thing wasn't going to be a thing. And at the end, like, it just completely fell upon itself. But, like, concerning her being a generic character, I don't mind a lot of components of books being very similar. Like, you know, we have the same tropes in every single YA book, basically. And, like, while it's nice to have, like, all of this new stuff, I kind of like having, like, the female heroine and, like, the boy meets girl. Like, every once in a while, I enjoy having books that are similar, but I just was really bothered by the fact that, like, she was aware that it was ridiculous that she was the only one that got her hearing back, and then it got canceled out by the end of the book. Oh, my God. One of my biggest problems with the book was that.
There was one other person. It was the other. Yeah, it was the one other person that was like her rival or whatever in the art.
I totally forgot about that.
But still, only 2 out of the entire village. It's pretty tropey. Kelly, go ahead.
For me, I had to kind of think about this too. If I thought she was generic, because to a degree, I feel like she is generic whenever she starts really going down the mountains and stuff. But in the town, I feel like she's not as generic because she respects her elders. She respects the people around her. And that's so different because in a lot of YA, we have this main female character that's like, I hate the government. I hate everything about everybody. I'm going to fight this. This is corrupt. And Faye is not like that. And at the end, when she comes back, she's still not like that. But I also have an issue with the fact that I feel like there was no development with her character, really, because we didn't have a long enough book to see that. Like, she's the exact same person from the start of the novel when she's getting ready to go as when she comes back. She may have a little bit more depth to her just because of everything she went through, but for the most part, she did not really change that much. And I would think with a journey like that throughout the book, there should be a little bit of development. We didn't see development with her character or any of the other characters or really the relationship, and that was probably one of my biggest problems along with the world development.
Selena?
Yes. So like Kelly was saying, it is hard to kind of learn what kind of how a person is in such a short time frame. It's such a short book. So with that being said, she was brave, and I know a lot of women in books are brave or whatever, but I did admire her. I mean, she did climb down a freaking mountain, let's be honest, by herself. Like, my fat ass would be climbing down a mountain, just saying. So I could admire that, and I really liked that about that character. Yes.
I agree. That's like the kind of stuff I was talking about, and I see like a lot of traits and qualities and tropes in YA are very generic. But like, why would we want a character who wasn't brave? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you kind of need that in young adult. But Sierra, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, the thing with repetitive tropes and stuff is some of them we actually like and we want to see them. It's something that you can rely on, that you know will be in a book that you like, and not instead of like a bunch of new things where you're like, what the heck is this? I don't like any of this. Bring me back my old stuff.
It just has to be done well, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Sierra, what were your thoughts on?
I do think that like she was generic, but I also think that she was a little bit on the different side from what we normally see from like the Katniss Everdeen, because she started off more like we said, more like Chinese culture, like following the laws of everything and didn't want to be above the radar. And then I feel like she shifted to the Katniss Everdeen. Like, I kind of feel like she went from first book Bella to like Katniss. Do you know what I mean? Or I guess you could compare it to Bella, because she starts off so shy and like doesn't want to like be noticed or anything, and then all of a sudden she's like, I need to fight. Like, I need to take care of everything and fix everything. So I feel like it was like that, but it doesn't bother me at all. I like that she kind of mixed the two like things that we always see to female characters.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me.
I think that she is generic because I don't really have much thoughts on her as a that's my problem. It's like, I have way more issues or thoughts or opinions about like other aspects of this whole story than I do about actual Faye being Faye and being the heroine of the story. Because like, I don't know.
I agree.
I don't know. Like, was Li Wei the actual hero because he's the one who made her do it? Like, he's the one that had the idea to go down the mountain.
Li Wei's
really
kind of
Faye's
badass.
story. Yeah. So like, I don't know. I mean, it was obvious that Faye was necessary. She was like, what am I trying to say? Like, without Faye getting her hearing and all that things happening, the whole plot wouldn't have happened, because that was the beginning of what happened, right? But like, if it hadn't been for Li Wei, would she have actually done it?
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. It's almost like Faye was kind of a plot device for Leeway, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's almost how I feel about it. Like, Leeway is the hero of the story, I think.
I love Leeway. I mean, he fell off the freaking mountain and kept going.
We have another question that I really, really want to answer, and it's from Soleil again.
I wanted to answer that too.
Yeah, on Twitter, and it says, "Do you think the ending was just too predictable and too perfectly set up?"
I already replied to her on Twitter because I couldn't wait for everyone.
I saw that. Alright, so why don't we go down the line? Brittany, what did you think?
Yes, is my answer for sure. And I'm going to kind of answer another question at the same time where someone, Fandom in Books, asked, do you think it should have been a duology? And that's what I was going to say is, yeah, it was extremely convenient, and I think if it was a duology, it would have been way better. I didn't find it predictable at all. Like, I never would have predicted it turned completely fantasy-based with dragons and, I didn't predict that. But I found it extremely convenient, and I think if it maybe, like, ended on, like, the dragon thing right away, like, and you left with a cliffhanger of what is this Pixius? I don't know how to say it. But then the next book go more into the fantasy base about the culture of what that is and what that Chinese folklore is and why the books are being developed more into a fantasy base. I think it would have been really, really, really good as a duology. It was just wrapped in this little bow at the end and was extremely rushed, I found, at the end. Really, really, really rushed. And I think if it was a duology, it would have changed my perspective completely of if it was a series or whatever. So, yeah, that's my quick answer of that one.
For me, well, I think I think that the ending was just really, really convenient. It was wrapped up really quickly, very prettily, it was wrapped up with a bow on top. And I prefer like a good, strong ending, and I didn't feel like that's what I got. Plus, the other thing was, too, maybe if they'd sprinkled a little bit, just a little bit, like, breadcrumbs throughout the rest of the story with a little bit of magic, it was just, like, all, like, real life, then all of a sudden this super magical ending, and it's like, what the hell? Yeah. Where did this come from?
Right in your face.
And the thing is, though, is that I could understand the purpose of creating a sequel for it and making it into a duology. The problem with that is I honestly did not like this book enough to ever read a second book for it. So you could do it, but I probably wouldn't read it realistically.
Concerning duology thing, I absolutely don't think it should be a duology because I don't think that continuing the series would have done anything for it. Like, I felt like everything that was supposed to happen in the book happened. I just felt like everything should have been longer and better developed. And, like, it could have been done in a book because this book is less than 300 pages.
Yeah.
Like, if it was 350 pages, 400 pages, like a regular, like a standalone fantasy, there's so much you have to put into it. And, like, I don't even want to consider this a fantasy book because it wasn't fantasy until less than pages. But I don't think a duology would have fixed it. I think that actually putting more into the book would have fixed the problems. But I don't think the ending was predictable because, like I said, there was nothing to suggest that anything fantasy was going to happen in this book in the end. Like, literally nothing. So I feel like that is something that should have been put into the first book, not explained in a second book. But the ending definitely was convenient. Like, oh, they blew up the trail that never was expected to be moved before, and now they can all go down, and, like, now the Pixius fix their hearing and their sight, and, like, all this fun stuff. Like, just, it ends really convenient. I just don't think it was predictable. But I think that, like, the problem should have been fixed in the first book and not in a second book.
I agree. But I wouldn't read the second book, so.
You're right, Emma. And if it was, like, say, like 400-some pages, like, fantasy is my favorite genre of all time. And you're right, like, I think either a duology or because I would read it because I did enjoy the book, or, yeah, at least, like, 450 pages, make it standalone, and, like Emma Red said, put some little breadcrumbs in there. Like, there was literally nothing. Or can anyone think of any hint that happened?
That's when they talked about the Pixiuses before, but, like,
I didn't understand it was folklore.
So,
yeah.
I thought it was just like a folk tale. Like, that's not something I would expect to be fantasy.
And I just want to add something really fast, too, just because, like, kind of what you were talking about just made me think about this, talk about how you couldn't predict it because there was nothing to sort of indicate that it would happen. how I imagined it was going to go down was, okay, maybe they're going to do the screaming thing, and I thought they would all, like, miraculously get their hearing back and then, like, rise up and riot against the soldiers.
Yes.
That's what I thought would happen, and I thought it would be, like, villagers against soldiers. I didn't expect these weird fairy dragon things to come and save the day. Like, what the hell?
That's exactly what I thought.
Like there was another question someone asked. I don't know if it was on Twitter or on the Q&A app, but somebody asked, like, do you think that everything, like, flew by too fast? Like, yeah, and I think that just making the book longer and focusing on the points, like, I didn't think any other scenes needed to be put into it. Like, I don't feel like I was missing, like, a big scene. I felt like I was just missing something for the already existing scenes. So, like, that, I just feel like it should have been longer, not 2 books. But, Kelly, what did you think?
I pretty much agree with everything everybody's saying. I think that it was not predictable at all because the ending was a total surprise. But I do think it was really convenient. Everything just kind of happened perfectly the way that they hear in the legends, and now all of a sudden they have these, whatever they are, guarding the village where nobody can ever come hurt them, because anytime somebody comes up, they're going to get killed by one of these things. And I think that is very, very convenient. I think that something that would have really helped, like y'all said with the breadcrumbs, is if as they start learning more about what's happening, they start learning more about what the Pixius or whatever are, and start seeing kind of hints of that actually being a real thing and that having happened before for another village. You know, if that was a situation with a village before where these things were guarding them, don't you think there would have been more proof that that existed and those things were there? And at this point, we don't see anything about it until the very end. So it was a pretty convenient ending. It didn't really bother me that much. I still really enjoyed it, but it was very convenient.
You know, like I've said it like 12 times already. I'm talking about it. But if with this sort of short book, it's hard to, you kind of have to have everything end so conveniently. I mean, and the thing with adding more pages, I know a lot of people, it's kind of like a give or take situation, because at the end of the day, a lot of people that I've seen reviews on and stuff were complaining that there was a lot of idle time. So if you had added another 200 pages in there, who's to say that it would have been just as entertaining? It might have slowed the story down. It might have made it a little bit more boring. So it's kind of like easy, convenient, or a little bit boring. Yeah, I don't know.
I just want to add before Asir says this up. I'm thinking of the way you said, like, a lot of books, like, have to end conveniently, but I'm looking at my bookshelf, and, like, a lot of fantasy, at least series endings, they end very conveniently, and, like, everything's happy at the end, but, like, I feel like just because it's so short, and it's not like we have, like, 5 books in between, like, we have, like, the cliffhangers that, like, spread it out more, so right. I don't know if this is, like, a factor for everyone, but, like, maybe, like, because it's so short, and, like, there wasn't so much that, like, it just feels much more convenient, even though a lot of other books do have endings where everything's wrapped up with a little bow at the end.
They didn't have to go through so much difficult time. And I think in normal fantasy series, every book has some new huge issue they have to get through. In this book, it's just one big issue. Let's fix it. Done. Now we're happily ever after. And
maybe somebody should have died.
That's what I am about to say once here. I think it's just annoying, because, like, I don't think it was predictable. Like, the last 10 pages, what? I don't understand where any of that came from, but it was, like, so perfectly wrapped up. Yes, of course they get to blow out the wall so that now they can have farmlands, and of course these magical beings show up so that they don't have to leave the toxic filled mountain that's poisoning them, because these things are now going to heal them, and all these people that do not like change get to stay on their fucking mountaintop because everything got wrapped up so perfectly within 10 pages. Like, it's just annoying to me that, like, they didn't have to go through any big changes, really. I mean, they kind of, but not really. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's of course they get to stay on their little mountain instead of having to, like, move on and deal with, like, what's actually out there. They just stay on their mountaintop, even though it's full of poison. That's oh my god.
I was frustrated with that too. I was frustrated that it ended with them staying exactly where they were, where, like, I think the problem with this book for me was that it didn't feel as much fantasy as it felt dystopian, but then at the end of the day it still ends in the exact same place that it started.
Right.
Like, no government change. Like, we start learning more about the king and all of his, like, fucked up ways. Sorry, it's Bibliothon channel and I said fuck. Oops, sorry. But, like, you're listening to all of this, like, shit that, I'm just gonna keep going, shit that the king does, and, like, he is awful and nothing happens to him. Like, why?
At all.
I don't know. Like, I honestly, if we were talking about the duology and if we were going to get another book, I want to see, like, the whole government change.
Yes, I was gonna say that, but I forgot.
Yeah, like, it just seems, this is why, like, I would almost say that this book is way more dystopian than it is fantasy. Like,
Yeah.
other than this one magical thing that happens at the end, which is one of the frustrating reasons that we don't even think it should be called a fantasy. This is not all throughout the book, but, like, other than that one thing, it's a fucking dystopian. It's not a fantasy book. Like, what is this?
The government is corrupted. Like,
Yeah. So I was frustrated with that. And then, what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, I felt like two things. One was that I did predict the ending. The second that the Elder Chen started talking about the Pixiu in the library, I was like, oh, so that's going to be how they get their hearing back. Because at the end of the day, what they want is going to be, like, to stop the blindness and get their hearing back, which was frustrating to me because... Okay, I want to find this quote. Hold on.
While Cassie's finding the quote.
Okay, so, sorry. When what's-her-face, Faye, first gets her hearing back, she says... she goes and does some history, like some reading, and she's reading this quote that says, I wish I was writing some great wisdom, some understanding of why this tragedy is happening to us, but there is none. And then she is thinking, and she says, I pause, contemplating her words. Throughout my life, the loss of our people's hearing has always been referred to as a tragedy, but I've never really seen it that way. I haven't really thought much about it at all, since it's hard to miss something you've never known. And to me, that quote is, like, the epitome of the deaf culture's thoughts on hearing. Like, if you ask anybody who's deaf, they don't think that they have any sort of handicap. It's not something that they miss. It's not something that they want. Like, there's a huge, like, controversy within the deaf community about cochlear implants and stuff. So, like, to me, I was expecting that to be maintained throughout the story. But then, of course, we got the hearing view of the world where, like, oh, hearing made everything better and now I want it back. And that was frustrating to me, too.
I kind of liked that not everybody did get their hearing back. It was the one thing that didn't tie up perfectly. That being said, it kind of bugged me that everybody wanted to be chosen for their hearing back.
Right, exactly. That was the thing. It was like, well, why do you need it? Like, it was frustrating.
I feel like that was unrealistic.
Especially if they're going to stay on the fucking mountain top and not even, like, mingle with anyone else in the world. Like, why do you need it back? You don't.
Yeah.
Why do they want it? I don't, because that's just completely unlike most deaf culture. Like, they don't usually want it back because they don't know or care any differently.
Right, and it's just going to be more work because then they're going to have to learn a language they'll never use.
The only thing that I can think of is that, like, the whole concern about no one ever trying to go down the mountain was that they couldn't hear the falling rocks. So, like, I'm not trying to, what am I trying to say? I'm not trying to say it's okay that they want their hearing back because it's not realistic whatsoever. But, like, I can understand, like, where they live and, like, the dangers of living on top of a mountain, like, and exploring into this world. Like, I can see why they think, like, it might be an asset, but it's not consistent with the community in general.
Well, I feel like that would make sense if they didn't stay on the goddamn mountain. Yeah, like if they stay on top of the mountain, they have no reason to have their hearing because they don't plan on leaving to have to hear the rocks. But if they were leaving, then it would make sense why they would want their hearing.
Well, like, I meant, like, going, like, they are, like, going to the farmland and stuff. That's what I was talking about.
Well, they don't need to, if they have that pass, though, do they have to worry about the rocks as much?
And if it's their own farmland.
Well, like, they haven't been there in years. That's just what I'm saying. Like, it's uncharted territory for everyone that's alive in the community right now. So I can understand why it might be looked at as an asset to them, but it's just, it's not
consistent with
normal.
everything.
Yeah, no.
Well, something I love, too, though, with the hearing is when she got her hearing, I love how they made it to where she was getting headaches and really confused. it was extremely overwhelming. I feel like that was really realistic because it probably would be extremely overwhelming if all of a sudden you can hear everything that's happening.
Right. The last thing I wanted to say about the end of this book is that I didn't like that everyone survived. I was expecting the sister to die, or like Elder Chen. Why didn't he die? Like, just somebody.
Yeah.
Like, give me one little death.
Why didn't he die?
Like
Every single one
of the soldiers died. Every single one of the soldiers died, but no important characters in the village or really anybody. Like, I feel like didn't somebody die like in front of Faye though, but before the Pixies
Like
came?
it was no one who really knew the name of.
Yeah, I would have liked like a named character to have died because I feel like it would have made the tragedy of it all sort of closer to home. Like whether it's a sister or an elder or even the other artist, you know?
I mean,
they also so conveniently had a hiding spot. Like, why did they conveniently just have this little hiding spot underground that nobody could find them with?
When they've been isolated for all these years, like who cares? Who's gonna come up there?
Also, Liwei's father did die, who we did know of beforehand, but I just feel like at the end is when someone should have died, like in that whole climactic scene. Like, how are all of these soldiers, with all of their explosives and their swords and their horses and all of this, how does no one that we actually know of not die? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
I also... Oh, sorry.
No, go see her.
I'm also questioning, like, so the soldiers are all dead now, and now they have these magical things protecting them, but what is stopping the king from attacking them again and taking all of the metal again? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, being scared.
Because if he's the king and has all this money, he could potentially figure out a way to kill them off, just like they chased him away however many years ago. Why wouldn't he do it again?
Maybe he had a duology, we find out.
Yeah, I agree.
And eventually they're going to have to go into a slumber again. They won't always be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they said that the other king figured out a way to defeat the Pixiu, so it's like, if this king was so worried about the Pixiu coming back, why didn't he use that same method to put him back to sleep? Like,
Which is so annoying as to why they stayed on the mountain if that could potentially happen again. You'd think they'd move elsewhere with the Pixie whatever things.
And what was the weapon? We didn't hear anything about it. Like, how were the Pixiu defeated in the first place, and why is that not applicable now?
No idea.
Everything is vague.
I would have liked the king to have kind of been a physical character, though, because I would have liked to have somebody to actually hate. I like having somebody to hate.
Yeah, I agree.
I do want to ask, because... Oh, was somebody
No, go ahead, Emma. Go ahead.
No, because I was going to say, I feel like we've been talking about like a lot of negative things in the book, so I wanted to know if there were anything, like any favorite scenes or anything that anyone did like about the book. But if you have something to say on the current topic, like, say it.
No, I was just going to actually change and ask a different question. So this one pertains to what Emma wants to, because I actually really liked this part. But Stephanie Rose on Twitter asked us, what did you think about the second group of people living halfway down the mountain? Do you want me to go first, or do we want to go down the line?
Wait, where do you see that question?
It's on Twitter.
In the winter ByBib hashtag?
No.
Oh, no, she tweeted it to us.
Oh, then that's why I don't see it.
So, Brittany, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. I didn't really connect with anyone because she didn't really bring anyone out, other than really that, I don't know how to say her name, Nume?
That lady.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really liked that scene, and when she went and they're all in like tents, and I don't know, I really liked that scene, and she was trying really hard to communicate to her, to explain to her what she is, and she had to run because the soldiers were coming, and I'm like, no, just stay and like figure it out because I want to know too. And so I really liked her interaction with her, and as well as having the experience of being in the inn and having that one moment of luxury together, and everyone was so kind to them rather than kind of shoving them away. They took both the characters in and help them experience their kind of life without like prejudgment, I guess. I can't remember what the girl's name is. The one that he thought was hot.
Oh, I don't remember her name.
I don't remember her name either.
Yeah.
When or something.
Yeah, that's like the only character physical thing she mentioned, that she had big eyes and he thought that was hot or something. It was quite.
I almost imagined with like if we're assuming everyone is Asian in the book, then I almost imagined her as the white girl because he talks about her big eyes and her red hair, I think.
Because they were in the inn and there were so many travelers, so like he's never seen people like this before, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, so I really like those two characters and the development and how they brought them in, and we're really trying to help them because they know what struggles they went through before, and they knew that they were kind of going to be the next people, and then that Noom or whatever realized that she could be the savior, I guess. And so I really like the interaction of the characters.
Red, what did you think?
Okay, so are we talking about what we liked, or are we talking about the thing halfway down the mountain? Because I kind of got confused on what we were actually discussing.
Cassie said they were like kind of related, so.
Yeah, you can
okay. So I'll just kind of go over both, I guess. So I liked kind of what Brittany said, that I liked when you see the people that came from the halfway down the mountain town, that they lived in tents, and and just seeing that they got out of there and their lives are still awful, and just how they're treated as a result. I found that very super interesting, and I felt like that kind of connected with me more. That being said, when they were actually coming down the mountain and they saw the skeletons inside the homes, the people that starved to death, and I thought it was a good addition to the story. However, I feel like the way it was executed, I feel like here was a really, really good opportunity to help me feel something and understand what direction their village was going, because I know that was the point of it. It was to show where their village was going to end up. And I thought this was a perfect moment to write this very well and make me feel something and make me feel, bad for this, no longer existing village. And I felt like, okay, there are skeletons, but I didn't really feel anything. It didn't really make me all that sad. I was like, oh, damn, that sucks. That's where their village is headed, but it didn't make me feel anything. I felt like the tents and stuff down in the town affected me more, and I feel like maybe it shouldn't totally have been that way.
I thought the extra village was really interesting because I wasn't expecting that. I think it also makes it more realistic that there would have been more than one mining town. I don't know, I just thought it was a really cool addition. When I was reading it, I was like, what the fuck are these skeletons doing here? It really intrigued me. But I think, I feel like we've been talking about so many negative things, and, there were so many scenes I liked in this book. I liked the scene when, they were eating dinner, and, Faye was in that really pretty dress, and I loved the scene when they were playing the Scorpion game, and I loved the scene at the end when she's going up in the basket and, trying to get back to the village. I don't know. There were so many good scenes in this book, in my opinion. I really, really enjoyed it, even though we're, nitpicking at, the little things. I just felt like a lot of the scenes were, I thought it was a fun book, and it was really entertaining. But I thought the addition of the extra village was, a really good addition to the story.
I agree.
I think the extra village was super interesting, because I wasn't expecting, I was expecting them to just go down this mountain, and it, almost in my head, I'm picturing just them scaling the side of a mountain, and they're not being, land and, other things. So when they run into this whole other village, I had to completely repicture the mountain in my head, which I liked because it was unexpected. And then I really enjoyed them getting into the town, even though the town wasn't necessarily my favorite part of the book, just because I was really angry when I got down there and found out what they were doing. And I'm kind of one of those people that drives me insane when I have something that I'm just so mad about that and I want it fixed. But I still thought all of that was interesting. All the games that they played and stuff, they were constantly, whenever they had some downtime, instead of doing other things, they were playing little games. And
oh my god, I loved that scene too.
Yeah, I thought that was so cool because it just shows something different with their characters, I guess. But I thought there was a lot of great scenes. The mountain scenes were really intense, and her having to go back up to the village was really intense, and having to jump off the line and stuff. There was a lot of intense scenes, even though it wasn't as well developed, that I really enjoyed. I thought it was a really fun read too. So, I mean, there was a lot that I really liked about it.
I really want to learn how to play that game.
Yeah. just randomly, like, I just want to say, like, one of my favorite scenes was when he fell off the mountain.
I like that scene.
Because I pictured them way higher. Like, I wanted to ask you guys, like, I thought he died.
Yeah,
Like,
I
I thought they were, like, halfway up the mountain, and then all of a sudden he was completely okay. And that
did too, and I was like, damn, this book's not even halfway over, and the love interest is already dead.
I had to say, I yelled out loud, so that was one of my favorite scenes because it like, freaked me out. Sorry.
The way I envision the scene is like no one's gonna know what I'm referring to, but like in Cadet Kelly of all movies I make reference to, when her dad falls off, he falls pretty far, but he falls on that ledge. That's how I saw it. Like I didn't see that he fell like really really far. Like I saw that he fell to like a small ledge, and from there they got on to like where the village was.
That's
but I
kind of how
definitely
I
expected that he died, and at first I thought it was much further than it was.
Yeah.
Same. Where were we at, Selena?
Yeah.
I wanted to give props to Richelle Mead because how do you write somebody? I wouldn't be able to write somebody getting their hearing back. Like, how do you describe hearing?
Yeah, it was so cool.
I really thought that was done well.
Part is really interesting to me because that's like impossible. Like it's like trying to describe a color. How do you describe that blanket behind me right there? Like it's just something that I wouldn't be able to think of and do personally. So I thought it was really interesting. I thought she did a really good job with that.
Sierra?
I agree with that. That is, yeah, I really enjoyed that part of the book. When it comes to the village in between the mountain, I also really enjoyed that part, and I wish there had been more of it, which is where I kind of wanted to ask everyone, were there parts that you wished were more elaborated on, but like your favorite parts, not like parts that we're all like confused about. But because like I really liked that scene, like them exploring all the places and then like having to basically run away because they were scared of it because there were skeletons. But like I thought it was really interesting, and I also love the part of them like climbing down the mountain, and I wish that would have been longer and a like bigger deal because that's what I thought the whole book was going to be, like them finding out what was at the bottom and like going on this big old journey to get there, and that was not it. But yeah, I enjoyed learning how to hear again, which isn't something, you know.
I like the ways that she, in the writing, when she was like, the person who she was reading from was like, I'm trying to explain hearing because I don't know when you guys will get it back. Like that whole scene where she was reading like what sounds are and making different associations. I thought that was so cool. One thing I didn't realize would happen until like it actually happened. I'm probably the only one that feels this way, but I didn't realize that they wouldn't be speaking the same language. Like when they met the speaking people, like it just didn't make sense to me that wouldn't be put in dialogue. I don't know why I didn't realize that would have happened, but like it put into perspective that like it was so difficult for them to communicate, and the only way they could communicate was with the sign language that wasn't the same exact sign language. I don't know, but when I just kind of expected, like, I'm so used to reading dialogue and sentences, and it was so cool for her to explain like sounds in a different language the way that I would explain someone speaking Spanish to me. You know what I mean? Like I've just never read from something like that, so I thought it was really cool.
It makes me curious to know if she did any research, like reading stuff about deaf people who have gotten cochlear implants or anything, and seeing if it makes me interested if she did any research like that to like see how.
I was wondering that too.
Someone tweeted something in the afterward or the acknowledgments or something that she was working with like a linguistic person who was like doing like in the deaf community and stuff. So like she did do like a lot of research on it.
Yeah, that part to me is like the most accurate in representation of like deafness. I thought
that's what I liked about it.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. What was I gonna say in regards to the mountain? The halfway down the mountain is my favorite scene. I got goosebumps, and I was just like, oh, the heebie-jeebies, this is awesome. And I also thought that the whole mountain like aspect would have just been longer, even though I don't know, like even though I thought that it would be longer, I felt like it was the perfect amount of length.
Yeah, I agree.
Like it didn't need more than it had, but I expected it to have been a bigger part of the book. And I really liked the whole part of them getting to meet all of the deaf people that were down there. I actually almost was a little bit surprised and maybe disappointed that they could communicate as well as they could, because even the amount of like accents and dialect change that would have happened within how many years, like we're talking about like many generations of sign, and it's still the same. That's not accurate. It doesn't happen. So I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't have more communication problem within the sign language, and I liked that they used the Chinese characters to get points across when they couldn't. I liked that part too. And them talking about them speaking what Emma was saying was making me laugh really hard. I really liked every time she was like, "Oh, that must be language. Oh, that's..." I'm like, yeah, awesome.
You're like, you're such a smart cookie.
It was just really fun to read about.
I would agree with that. I really liked the skeleton town halfway down. I just wish there was more of it. I would have loved to have seen more skeletons.
Me too.
Me too.
But I'm just weird and I like creepy abandoned things like that.
Yeah, same.
Kat D is asking us if we would like to see this as a movie, or if they did expand and use creative license to change some things.
I think it would be so cool as a movie, because who makes a movie with no language? You know what I mean? Like, how would they adapt that? That's what I think is really cool.
Yeah.
I would like to see it in a movie. I think it'd be awesome. And if they did incorporate little crumbs of the magic in there too, and kind of make it more like whimsical and creepy, and like I could just see them climbing down the mountain, and like it'd just be so mysterious. I would watch it personally.
What would you guys prefer in a movie? Like captions or
well, have you guys ever seen the movie? Have you guys ever seen the movie The Artist?
No.
Well, basically, it's this, okay, because this is, I feel like if it was done in the style of The Artist, it would be really, really interesting, because The Artist was amazing, and all of you should see it. But The Artist is this movie about silent picture actors. Right? Obviously, it was only made a few years ago, but it was about silent picture actors, and the way the movie was done is the entire movie was done without voices. There was no voices, there was just the movement, the gestures, with occasional of the shots like in between the scenes, kind of like old picture movies. But then you get one scene out of the entire movie where all of a sudden you can hear his voice, and all of a sudden you can hear all the people talking again, and you can hear, and it's so, but the way it's done makes it seem so strange and almost chaotic, even though we hear it in everyday life. In the grand scheme of the entire movie, this particular scene just stands out because it's the only scene that has all the sort of chaos of the daily noises we hear on a daily basis. And I feel like doing it in that style would achieve the feeling of Faye's experience and be able to I feel like if they could capture it in that sort of style like that, where they could capture the sensations of not having hearing and getting hearing back, I feel like it could be a really interesting movie if it was creatively done.
Well, since they're using sign, I think they could do, like, if they did the beginning where she can't hear, they did all that in, like, captions, and then once she could hear, you could, like, actually hear her saying, like, her thoughts as she signs.
That would be cool. Yeah.
I think it might be a pretty cool movie to be in, like, an animated film or an anime. That way you could get a little bit more of that Chinese culture mixed into it. And I think it would be really pretty, like the mountaintop, and then I think it might be really good.
I think it would be cool if they did it to have kind of like what Sierra just said, with like no, basically you wouldn't want to be able to hear the sounds of everyday life in that first half where she can't hear it. You'd want to have like a really good soundtrack, and you'd want to have captions. But I think it would be
muted sounds, like fuzzy, like you're trying to hear stuff but you can't hear anything.
Right. And then I think but I would say that it would need to stick with captions the whole way. And then the only sounds, like once she starts being able to hear, obviously you'd hear the everyday sounds. You'd start hearing like, what was she talking about? Like the paintbrush making the sound?
Yeah.
I think it'd be really cool. You would have a lot of creative license to mess with all of that stuff, like once that point hits. What is that? Like a fourth of the way into the story,
I
and
just
she
think
starts hearing. I think it'd be really cool.
like there's no movie like that. That's what I just think. Like there's no book like this. So like that's why I'm like a little disappointed with it, because there was so much she could have done with it, and it just it could have been freaking amazing. It was just good and entertaining. But like if it was a movie and they fixed the things that needed to be fixed, I feel like it would have been fantastic. Would make a fantastic movie.
You guys need to watch The Artist. I need you to understand what I'm talking about, because you would, like, I swear, you would, like, if you saw the movie and you knew which scene I was talking about, you'd be like, oh my god, that's perfect, because it's so hard to describe, and it's so perfect, and it would just be perfect for Soundless.
Emma,
Yes?
do you want to answer the Vampire Academy question?
I would
Without spoilers.
Like, have you all read Vampire Academy? Do you think the book is better than the first Vampire Academy?
No.
But I just want to answer.
I mean, Vampire Academy is my third favorite series of all time. So like that's a lot for one fantasy standalone to beat. But I think the writing in Vampire Academy is better. I like the characters better. It's a full-fledged fantasy book, and it's not just a fantasy at the end. So like I think it's better. I just think that Richelle Mead was experimenting, which I can really appreciate in an author. But I definitely don't think it's at the caliber of her other books.
I agree with that totally. And I think with Vampire Academy, you can actually like research where she gets her vampires from, and where she developed this entire idea, and it is total legend and everything. And I think that's super interesting. So I love the Vampire Academy. I don't think it compares really.
All of you should read Vampire Academy and not let Soundless put you off from Richelle Mead.
Do we want to start wrapping up?
Yeah. Are there any specific questions that...
I was thinking we could finish it off with Broadcasting Books question. What star rating did you give this book? Which we already answered that part. But did you like this better or worse than Paper Towns?
Better.
I liked it
don't
better.
know. I think they're so different.
I
really...
would better for. I didn't really like Paper Town, so I was actually gonna watch that movie tonight. By the way.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't do it to yourself.
Like the movie.
I fell asleep during the movie. Don't do it to yourself.
Yeah. I like this book better than My True Love Gave to Me and Paper Towns. Those my
I do like it better than My True Love Gave to Me. Because I didn't like My True Love Gave to Me.
No.
What was I say? They're so different that it's like really hard to compare. But the more I think about Paper Towns, the less I liked it. Like I know, like in the live show, I was like, oh my god, I love Paper Towns. Like it's my favorite John Green book. But like I don't feel that way about it anymore. Like through discussion and like more in-depth thought. So I think I do like Soundless better. I feel like every time for the Biannual Bibliothon, I like each book better.
It's funny because I totally agree with you, Emma. I was thinking about earlier how over time Paper Towns is like not as much of a standout to me as I thought it was when I read it, and so I've stopped liking it as much. So I probably like Soundless better because I read it so much faster. And if I read a book really fast, I like it more than something that's going to take me forever.
What do the rest of you guys think?
I think I like Paper Towns better just because I read it at a very, very important time in my life, and it really changed how I thought, and it helped me out with a lot of things. So it just kind of resonated with me more than this book did, but they're both good.
I don't like Paper Towns, so I like this one better. But like I have this issue with like liking books when I first read them, and then like after it festers for a while, I like hate it. Like when we were talking about Shatter Me the other day, I'm like, no. But I feel the same with Paper Towns, but I didn't like Paper Towns when I first read it, but like I continue to like it less. Like I enjoyed Soundless. I didn't hate it. I just
I think a lot of people who read Soundless, like the participants, liked it too. Like just from like what I was seeing people talk about, like on Twitter and stuff. Like it seemed like people were really enjoying it. So like that's good.
For me, I kind of thought about it. If I had both books put in front of me, which one would I reread?
I'd reread this.
I would reread Soundless. I would not reread Paper Towns because even though I started off enjoying Paper Towns, by the end of it, I really did not care for it. I definitely didn't care for the movie. for what I remember of it because I fell asleep. But I had a harder time with Paper Towns. I got through Soundless much faster, and I just think that, I mean, I probably wouldn't reread either of them. I just don't think that I mean, not that I didn't like Soundless, I did to an extent, but not enough to reread it. But if I had to choose, I would probably pick Soundless to reread.
I want to ask you guys because I thought. Oh wait, Cassie, you said you liked Soundless?
I said I would definitely reread Soundless over Paper Towns. I've actually reread Paper Towns once because I had already read it before we picked it the last time, and I was upset. I did not want to reread it last time either, but I did for us. But yeah, I would reread this.
I'm curious with you guys because this is the first fantasy that we picked for the Biannual Bibliothon. We had 2 contemporaries and we had this one. And like for you guys as hosts and like for the participants too and people who are watching, like, do you think we made a good choice switching to a fantasy? And like, do you think like we should continue to like expand into different genres and like maybe like I know that for those participants who don't know, we're doing like a poll for the next group book, so you guys can choose it. So we're not going to be choosing it anymore. But like, you think that we did like the right thing by switching up the genres and like we should like put in like different genre options for the poll?
Well, yeah, because I don't think like the Biannual Bibliothon should represent one genre.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, I definitely think we should switch it up. Like every time should be a different genre because it's reading on it doesn't have anything to do with like a type of book that we're reading.
Right. Oh no, I was just wondering because like it was the first change that we made. Like if you thought that like it was just as successful as, if not as successful as like the other books that we had chosen.
Yeah, I think this was way better.
Yeah, I think it was a good choice.
I actually enjoyed the fantasy a lot better.
Yeah. Speaking of the poll, though, I want to say to anybody who's watching, if you have any suggestions on what books should be in the poll, comment them or tweet them at us if the comments are still not working because we don't want to be the only ones putting in books.
Well, even if you're watching after the fact that like this isn't live anymore, still tell us.
Because we
will be taking suggestions until the time comes.
Just as like a reminder, if anyone's going to be suggesting them, we're going to be picking books that come out in like the summer.
Yeah, because we want something that people haven't really read yet, or not as many people have read.
Or just so if you haven't heard on BookTube yet, like even if it's an older book, if you don't see it being really hyped, then definitely let that one be heard too. Because it doesn't necessarily need to be a new release. We just don't want it to be a book that everyone has already hyped.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, we're not going to pick, like, Hunger Games or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Also, just me, you know, personally, and being selfish, I wouldn't totally hate it if you threw out some, like, supernatural paranormal books out there for the poll. I wouldn't hate it. I mean, I'm just going to throw that out there.
Like, we all have our favorite genres, and I feel like all of us are kind of different in that aspect, so we will be happy with any genre.
I'll read whatever you guys
to reread Hunger Games, just saying.
Yeah, true. Like, I will read whatever our people pick. Like, I will read whatever you put in front of me. But if it happens to include vampires or ghosts, I mean, what can I do?
Let's read that new Queen of Hearts book that's coming out.
Oh my god, that looks so good. It looks so good, and I need it.
Maybe we can use it for the next winter Biannual Bibliothon.
Which one are we talking about? I missed it.
Are we talking about Heartless?
I don't know when that comes out.
November. Next winter Biannual Bibliothon.
All right. Do we have any last-minute things we want to say? We should say that we will be announcing the winners for all of the challenges that happened this week on Sunday. So a week from today, we'll have a video up of all of that. We'll all have our individual videos having honorable mentions and our own giveaway winners and et cetera, and then we'll have a video on the Biannual Bibliothon channel with all the winners as well. We'll put up playlists of everything like we always do. So make sure to keep an eye out for that next Sunday. If you're wanting to know if you won, is that everything? Like,
I have something I want to add. For any of you guys that have entered your videos and then you just after the day was over and you put them on private, please make it so we can watch them because we're going to be rewatching a lot of the videos and some people have already privated their videos and then we can't watch them.
I haven't seen basically any of the entries.
Yeah.
So they need to be not
private.
Yeah, and we noticed some of them are already private, and we need you guys to keep them public a little while longer, okay?
At least until next Sunday.
Yeah.
And preferably always, because then we can
Yeah,
have fun to watch.
I
Because
know.
they're fun to watch.
Why wouldn't you be proud of them? Like, all the videos I've watched so far are great, so I don't see why anyone would need to private it, but
And sometimes I
Each
still go
their
back and watch them again, even like months later, and just
all the time.
And with that, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that participated in this biannual Bibliothon. Like, it just gets bigger and bigger
I
every.
know, this round was crazy.
I think Emma put a big playlist together, and there was 200 and what, Emma? 203.
Bryn entered right after I announced that there was 203, so there's at least 204 now. But
Go through them. We have a playlist thanks to Emma put together, and we really appreciate everyone that joined us. This Bibliothon just gets bigger and bigger, and we really, really appreciate it. And I'm sad it's over.
I know.
I
But yeah,
know.
if you're interested in seeing like all of the video challenges, there's a playlist on the Biannual Bibliothon channel that shows every single entry we received. So check those out because they were all phenomenal. Every single one of them.
Is that everything?
I think that's everything.
All right, we're going to say bye then.
Bye.